What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'm bringing you my UFC Abu Dhabi recap video. So to start off, we'll go over the bets first, and then we'll go into the picks later. So first, for the bets, we had a decent night. Now, this was the original slate that I had in the first betting breakdown video, but I just added the ones in blue, the light blue. Those were bets that I added after that video was placed. I just obviously couldn't add them back into that. So it ultimately didn't make a huge difference with these live bets that I added after the original betting breakdown video. It only was a matter of, I think, like 0.2 units, so it really didn't make a whole lot of a difference. So I just wanted to show you guys kind of what I ended up with. I added a little bit on Martin Buday, Marcus Buchecha. At one point in the fight, I think it was after the second round, Martin Buday or Marcus Buchecha was a plus 280, and I thought it was 1-1, so I figured, all right, for him being this big of an underdog when he was a minus 300, it was worth a little bit of a sprinkle, so I went ahead and did that. Same with Davey Grant money line. I did end up doing the live bet on Damon Blackshear like we talked about, but there was one point, it was at the end of the first round where Damon Blackshear couldn't get the submission, and Davey Grant was in pretty good condition, you know, he was pretty safe, so I figured, all right, at plus 500, if Damon Blackshear can't get the sub in round one, he's probably not going to get it, just because that's when they're the most fresh, that's when they're the least sweaty, that's his best opportunity to get it, and he didn't really seem like he had anything that was really dangerous lined up. So I thought for plus 500, Davey Grant does better as the fights go on too, so I figured, all right, for plus 500, it's worth a tiny little sprinkle. I had 0.05, didn't really bring up a whole lot at 0.25, especially because I added a live bet on Said Nurmagomedov, so these two basically canceled each other out. I had a little sprinkle on him. It was the same thing. I thought it was 1-1, and going into the third round, he was a plus 280 underdog. So I was like, it's probably worth a little bit of a shot considering we're in Abu Dhabi. If there's any robbery decision, it's probably going to go Said's way, even though I do agree Bryce definitely won that fight. It was very close, but yeah, I just thought for those odds it was worth it. But yeah, those two plays about canceled out. The Asu Amabayev live play I did like. This one was after the first round. I knew when Asu was having success landing takedowns after that first round, I figured that was probably going to be wraps at that point, just because Jose Ochoa, his best chance to stop the takedowns was round one, because he didn't have a full camp to train. His cardio was probably not as good as it was, or could have been. Even though his cardio did look great, I just think that definitely hindered his ability to stop the takedowns, you know, all that energy he had to exert. And since Asu had such good success in the first round, I figured at minus 180, he's probably... the real odds of him winning the fight after being so dominant in that first round were probably more than that. You know, Jose Ochoa did land some good shots, but Asu just ultimately out-wrestled him. He had the whole camp to train, so that minus 180, I had a half unit on there. And then, yeah, at the very end, after all these bets, it was just about even. So I was like, you know, I don't want to lose anything crazy on the Whittaker or the RDR fight. I know we originally talked about the Whittaker and over 2.5, which would have been damn close if I actually played it. But I ended up just playing it safe and looking for opportunities for the live betting where both of them were big dogs. The first one, I took RDR at plus 250. That was after the first round. I thought that was kind of insane for RDR to be a 250 dog within, it was not even before the first round was over. It was like towards like the last minute or so of the first round, he was a plus 250 dog. I'm like, how the hell does that even happen? I have no idea. And then somewhere around, it was either the third or the fourth, I think it was towards the fourth, Robert Whittaker ended up flipping, and he was a plus 190. So I just put a little sprinkle on them, hedged it there, because I didn't want to really lose anything. I just kind of wanted to find a good line, and it ended up paying off pretty well. The plus 250 hit for a little bit more at 0.38 coming back, and we lost 0.1 on the Whittaker live money line. But yeah, other than that, it was the exact same. I just want to show you guys the full transparency too. This was the slate without those live betting slots that I had, that I placed after the betting breakdown video. So it was a minus 0.3 units on the night. You know, just about broke even. I'm really not too pissed off about that. You know, the only thing that really cost us was Carlos Leal. That ultimately hurt us, you know, that if he wouldn't have had that loss, this bet would have cashed. This could have cashed, I guess, if he had the knockout, but at least this one would have cashed if he had at least won the damn fight. So that was really shitty. You know, I was really confident in Carlos Leal. I thought he was going to get it done, but he went and got starched by a 41-year-old man. You know, it is what it is. It's part of the game. So next, we're just going to go through the picks, kind of give you my thoughts on all of them, looking back with hindsight, like what I'm thinking about it. So we'll start off Martin Buday versus Marcus Buchecha. You know, I'm not super upset with this pick. It was 1-1 going into the third. Martin Buday had better cardio. He won the fight. Pretty simple. I think it's not that surprising to anyone, honestly, because we've seen Marcus Buchecha slow down a little bit. I just didn't think he would have death gassed like that. I thought he would have done a little bit better. So yeah, at minus 260, especially with that live bet too. I got him. What did I get him at? It was plus. Yeah, I got him at plus 280 going into the third. I was like, all right, that's good value considering he was a damn minus 300. So, not super upset with that pick though. It really was a 50-50. I had it in my trap, so not too pissed about that one. Next up, Stephen Wen versus Muhammad Yahya. This was a pretty straightforward pick. This fight should have been stopped a lot earlier. Oh my God, that was a brutal watch for sure. But next up, we got Ibo Aslan versus Billy Elikana. I don't know what the hell happened with Ibo Aslan. Did he get paid off to throw that fight? What the hell was going on with him? No idea. Like I said, this was a low confidence pick for me, so I'm not super surprised by this. We knew he had holes in his grappling, and we knew Billy Elikana had success against Bogdan Guskov, so he had something to rely on. So I wasn't going to be super surprised if he won this fight on the ground, but I am surprised that he won this fight on the feet. Just in a pitter-patter striking match, both guys, 28 significant strikes to 35. I don't know what the hell is going on here. Very odd, but at least they got the decision right on that one. Next up, we got Amanda Ribas versus Tabitha Ricci. This was a lucky pick, honestly. This was luck. Amanda Ribas was winning it, and she probably would have won that fight had she not gotten a damn elbow right to the eyeball. I mean, that would put anyone down, And Tabitha Ricci only had one knockout in her entire career, so the fact that she got one here doesn't really show anything great. I mean, kudos to her. She landed good shots, but this was more of an unlucky pick because Amanda Ribas was, when they were actually from distance, and they were actually, even when Tabitha Ricci was pressing Amanda Ribas up against the cage, she was winning the exchanges. She was looking good. She had a bit of the first round when it started, it was a little shaky, but she started to come back towards the end. She was looking good into that second. She just got unlucky. That happens. Next up, we got Davey Grant versus Damon Blackshear. I'm not mad about this pick either because this was just a fight IQ test that Damon Blackshear clearly failed. He looked great in the first round. He was grappling. He looked amazing. And then what does he do in the second and third rounds? He completely abandons that game plan for whatever reason. I don't know what the hell he was doing. I thought in that second round, because I actually did place a live bet on him when he was plus 154, I think. This was towards the end. What was it? Yeah, plus 154. This was at the end of the second round. I was thinking in my head, I was like, all right, if he took the second round off the strike, I'm like, okay, maybe he just used a lot of energy in the first grappling. He's taking the second to just kind of back off the gas tank a little bit, kind of restore his energy, slow it down a little bit, and then pounce on that third round. So he kind of threw the second to get the third back. That's what I thought anyone with a decent fight IQ would do. Damon Blackshear obviously didn't. He threw the second and third rounds. Shout out to Davey Grant. Deserved that win, clear as day. But Damon Blackshear, he showed a very evident lack of fight IQ, lack of heart, lack of grit. And you can't really predict that. So I'm not super mad about the pick. Damon Blackshear proved he had the superior ground game. He should have won through that. He just kind of, I don't know if he gave up, fight IQ, whatever the hell it was. Not super upset about that. But next up, Muslim Salikov versus Carlos Leal. This was a very tough one. I know, we've had a hard time with the damn locks the last 2 weeks. It has been a rough go, and this really just blew my mind in the sense of there was a 10-plus year age gap. He had a 4-inch reach advantage for Carlos Leal. He just knocked out Alex Morono in one round, who has been decently durable, who could last. And Muslim Salikov, he was coming off within the last couple fights. He had a bad knockout loss to Randy Brown. And I saw it when Muslim Salikov, he had that knockout win against Song Kanan. I'm like, all right, that's from distance. That's that heel kick he landed, or whatever kick it was. He landed that from distance. That's when he can do well. And Carlos Leal, he crashes the pocket. He gets in dirty. So I'm like, all right, a 41-year-old man who's been cracked in the last couple fights, his 10-year age difference, 4-inch reach advantage. Carlos Leal had never been knocked out in his entire career up until that point. In 26 fights, he had never, or 28 fights before this, he had never been knocked out before. And for him to get first round knocked out against Muslim Salikov, certain things you just cannot predict. Like Kevin Holland throwing against D-Rod, everything on paper, and even beyond paper, everything was pointing towards him. Same with Carlos Leal in this one. Shit happens, fist fights, it's just unlucky. We've had two unlucky weeks in a row. It is what it is. We're going to bounce back. But yeah, this was a tough one. At least Muslim Salikov, clear as day. He won it, obviously, so good for him. But can't really beat myself up too much on that one. This pick with Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell looked good in there. It came down 1-1, third round. It was just whoever wanted it more, and Bryce wanted it more. He deserved the win. I thought there was a chance he could have been robbed in Abu Dhabi. That's why I had a little sprinkle on Saeed after that third round, or during the third round, when he was such a big underdog. Because I thought, damn, if it's 1-1, the round was decently competitive, they could have given either the first or the second. I could have seen them both giving them to Saeed, if there was any robbery. But there wasn't, it was actually really good judging, so good for Bryce. He won that. It's a decent pick there. This is just like the Damon Blackshear fight. This fight, Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. I feel like anyone who picked Bogdan Guskov really got lucky with that pick. And I was rooting for Bogdan Guskov. I was glad to see him win. Like, this is not even from a shitty standpoint, and I won money on this fight, so it's like not even a biased pick at all. But anyone who picked Bogdan Guskov genuinely got lucky, just because of Krylov's non-existent fight IQ. Krylov's coming off a couple months of a bad knockout loss to Dominic Reyes. What does he do? He goes and stands and bangs against Bogdan Guskov, who wins his fights by knockout. You have to be so mentally dumb and have so little fight IQ at all. He didn't even shoot a single takedown. At least Damon Blackshear in the later rounds, he attempted one or two. They were shitty, but at least he tried something. This was unacceptable. 0 for 0 on takedowns, coming off of a knockout loss. And we saw Bogdan Guskov's ground game get exposed by Billy Elikana in his UFC debut. And the dude doesn't shoot a single takedown. This was the one that pissed me off the most out of anything, just because it was purely all came down to Krylov's fight IQ. Because on paper, if the game plan was so clearly there for him, that's why I picked Krylov. It was clear as day how he should have won this fight. Volkan Ozdemir did it. Billy Elikana had very good success taking it to the ground. This guy is a BJJ black belt. He's a good grappler. That's where he's had so much success. And what does he do? Stands and bangs. Nikita Krylov is a dumbass, to say the least. Shout out to Bogdan Guskov. I like him. I wanted him to win this fight, so it was good to see him win it. But from a pick standpoint, really stupid. The only pick, this is, next up, we got Asu. This was the only pick of the card where, looking back, I'm like, damn, I probably should have gone with Asu. Just because Jose Ochoa, he's very good. I'm really high on him. It was just the wrestling. It was just a step ahead. It was probably the full camp that had to do with it. I thought Jose Ochoa maybe could have had enough damage landed to where he could have swayed the judges even with the takedowns. And he outstruck him, from total strikes you can see, but it's just the significant strikes because he's being controlled a lot. It was hard. I was surprised his cardio did hold up very well. And I think within a couple years, if he works on that takedown defense a little bit, he'll be able to do a lot better. Asu obviously dominated here. This was the only pick where I was like, yeah, I should have gone with Asu. That would have made more sense. I did have this as a low confidence pick, so I'm not super upset with that, but just this was the one pick of the card where I was like, yeah, probably should have gone with Asu, but shout out to them both. They both did a good job in that one. Next up, we got Shara versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Now, this one was a lot closer than people thought. This was my best spot with the live betting. It was just like we talked about in my betting breakdown video. I knew if these lines tightened up, I thought there was really no way Shara was going to lose this fight unless he got knocked clean out. And it was damn close. His nose got busted up by Marc-Andre Barriault. But I don't know how those lines crept all the way down. Like, at one point, I know I got it at minus 154. I almost doubled down because I was like, no way. It's got all the way down to minus 154 from minus 700 or whatever it was. At one point, it was a pick'em, and I wanted to double down, but I was like, all right, this has been such a rocky night already. I don't want to go down even worse, with the picks being all over the board and picks being screwed all the way to the bets were like just about even at this point. And I was down just a tad. I was like, all right, I don't want to overextend. So I didn't end up doing it, but he got all the way down to a minus 115. That would have been a great double down. I just kind of played it safe. But yeah, Shara won this fight clear as day. Marc-Andre Barriault, though, his chin held up better than I thought it would, and Shara just wasn't really able to land a whole lot in terms of damaging strikes. He had it wobbled a couple times, but nothing crazy. These guys are both tough. Shout out to Marc-Andre Barriault. He's a savage. I don't know what's next for him, but hopefully he gets a good matchup in his next fight. Same with Shara. He'll probably get another old striker. You know what I mean? It's not... We know what's going to happen with Shara. But yeah, I was surprised to see Marc-Andre Barriault 2 out of 6 takedowns. That's probably more than he's had in the last 10 fights combined. You know, he hasn't shot for takedowns in the last like 5 years or something crazy. So that was a little bit crazy of a stat to see with the control time, but it also makes sense. You know, that was probably his best path to win. But shout out to these guys both. They put on a war for us. And yeah, Petr Yan, Marcus McGee, this went exactly how I thought it would too. It was something, I didn't have a whole lot on this one. Yeah, just 0.25 units. This was towards the end of the first, because this is when Marcus McGee, I think, won the first round. This is when he dropped all the way down to minus 180. And I figured, all right, these odds are still not great, but it's worth it. You know, for him being a minus 400 to cutting that in half, I thought it was worth a quarter of a unit. I didn't want to go too far on this, especially with the Shara. We had a good play there, so I didn't want to overtax it and risk throwing it, even though I was very confident in Yan. You know, you never know. You figure the fight's going to the decision, it's going to the judges overseas in Abu Dhabi, anything could happen, but it was clear as day. 29-28 made a lot of sense. You know, the second and third rounds, he started to really pick it up and dominate. We had a good play on that one, good pick on this one. This was a really good one for us, so that was good there. And finally, in the main event, and you know, I was going back and forth all week, pick flipping on this. I ended up going with RDR, so that was good. I think he probably deserved this. I need to watch it back. The split was valid. You know, RDR did have the control time, but I don't know how RDR actually outstruck Rob Whittaker in significant strikes. That is surprising. But, you know, Rob Whittaker was definitely doing the more damaging blows, you could tell, but I don't think it was you can't say it was a robbery. You could argue for Whittaker, and I totally get it. But this pick too, this was like, I don't really feel any type of way about this pick, because it was so damn close. You know, it's not like oh, I told you so. I don't think anyone could say that leaning one way or another, because it really, at one point, it looked like either guy was really about to take over, and it was close up until the end. So shout out to both these guys. They did a great job. We got the pick with RDR. But yeah, guys, that about does it. This was the worst week of picks I've had since I've started tracking them, like ever. I've never done this bad, so that was not good. But next week, you know, I've already started checking out the next card. I'm feeling confident. I got a good lock already planned out for next week. I already got my lock. I already got it. I'm super confident about it. And, you know, this is where we're going to bounce back. So stay tuned for these videos coming up. And like I said, even betting-wise, you know, it was still a good night. It was just about broke even with this. With the live betting, it was just slightly positive. So it wasn't really a whole lot either way. It was within 0.3 units either way of a swing. So not that big of a deal. Just a typical week, you know, can't be mad about that. Picks-wise, we'll bounce back next week, though. We got unlucky on a lot of these plays, and the only one looking back was the Asu one. You know, that was something, maybe could have switched that up. But the other ones just got unlucky in a lot of these. Guys who easily could have won their fights if they used better fight IQ and actually had a game plan and stuck to it, would have won. So you can't beat yourself up for that type of pick where the fighter sells it themselves, even though they had that path. But anyway, guys, next week, you know, we're going to have some more videos coming up for the next card. I'm excited to go over that with you guys. I already got my lock. Like I said, I already got that locked in. I'm super excited about it too. So yeah, stay tuned for these videos, and yeah, I'll catch you guys at the next one. It's been your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'm out. Peace.